Our objective on field day is to get out as early as we can because particularly with Sugarloaf Island, we want to catch the tide. We want to be there at low tide so that we can get the most coverage of the land itself. So we want the water to be low. So what we do is we're going to take a boat out to Sugarloaf Island. We're going to offload all of our gear, and we've got a central point in the island where we're going to set up our base station. And that's what this guy is for. We put it on a tripod in the middle of the island, and what this does is it sits all day and collects data from all the satellites overhead, and it averages those together. So what we get is an entire day's worth of point averaged over this single spot, and that becomes our anchor for the project. That becomes our base station, our control point, our benchmark. We use a handful of terms for it, but once you get into the field, you sort of understand what you're talking about. So the second, after we've got our base station up, is we need to go set out ground control points, and those are the 1 meter orange targets. Those are used as reference points because what we do after those are set up is we'll go in with an individual rover, which is one of these that's just set on a 2 meter pole, and you walk along with it and you set it in the middle of your ground control point, and you collect an average point data from that the same way you do with the base station, but instead of sitting all day, these sit over those ground control points for a period of 3 minutes on average. It can vary, but generally 3 minutes is the time frame. So those become the individual ground control points that we then lock into that base station, and that becomes sort of a skeleton of the area that we're looking at. So once our base station and once our ground control points are set up, that's when we start flying. What we do with our survey flights is we tend to fly in a sort of lawnmower pattern, back and forth across the area, so that, again, we get that proper coverage that we're looking for. And then once we have enough photos of the place that we're looking for, we're good in the field. That ends the field process. We'll break down the base camp, we'll put everything away, and then we bring it all back here where we do the data processing. So the field day mostly is just that, going out, setting up the base station, setting up our ground control points, measuring in the ground control points, which generally is the longest process, and then doing the individual flights over our survey area. So for the data processing, the first step we're going to do is we're going to take all the photos that we got with our UAV, and we're going to put it into Agisoft Metashape. And then we go through the very tedious process of hand tagging every photo. We want to go through and find each one of these little targets here, and we're going to click on the exact center, and that's going to get paired up with some of the GPS data that we collected with the rover out in the field. So that way we have the tie point in the photo paired with the actual GPS data that we collect in the field. That way our digital model is paired with a real world understanding of that space there that we collect with the GPS data. So once all these photos are tagged, then Agisoft runs its algorithm which ties everything together, and we use that to generate a dense point cloud. And that is the basis of our 3D model. So from that point, it can take several hours because it's scraping through, combing through every photo pixel by pixel, trying to find tie points, and then interpolating the differences in the voids between the tie points. From that point with our point cloud, generally what's left after that is up to the end user. We'll generally create a DEM, which is sort of a map of the elevation and the slope of the terrain. For Sugarloaf Island, what we're doing on this particular mission is to set up a baseline of data. We are going to be coming back to Sugarloaf Island several times over the next few years. And what we're going to be doing is comparisons. So this will be our baseline data set of understanding where we're at, how the island is shaped, what it's composed, all that kind of stuff. And that way, when we go out in the future, we'll collect more data and we'll compare those 3D models and those DEMs to this existing baseline. That way, it'll give something to compare against, and we'll be able to understand how much that island is changing, where it's changing, how quickly it's changing, and it gives us all sorts of data like that.